And now for today's program. Joe Alterman studied music at New York University, receiving both his bachelor's and master's degrees in jazz piano performance. He has performed at many world-renowned venues, including the Kennedy Center, Lincoln Center, and New York's Blue Note, where he has opened many times for Ramsey Lewis. He has also performed with Houston person Les McCann, Dick Gregory, and his own trio. Joe has released 4 critically acclaimed albums, including his most recent in 2021 entitled The Upside of Down, Live at Birdland. Joe has also written liner notes to 3 Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis albums. In addition to his piano work, Joe is the executive director of Neranenah Concert and Culture Series, which celebrates Jewish contributions to music and the arts. Please welcome Joe Alterman.
This song is My Heart Belongs to Dad. Thank you very much. That was My Heart Belongs to Daddy by Cole Porter. I'm going to get to the intro for that song in a sec, but again, my name is Joe Alterman, and I'm a pianist and the executive director of Neranenah Concert and Culture Series, which when I came on was called the Atlanta Jewish Music Festival. And to me, when I started that job, the challenge was figuring out what is Jewish music. And when I came on, I was determined that I'd find the definition and we'd be cool. So I met with 300 different people, and I asked all 300 people the same question: what is Jewish music? And I honestly got 300 different answers. And it was everything from anything in Hebrew, to which I, would say I know a band that plays some Johnny Cash tunes in Hebrew. And then someone would say, it's anything from Israel. And I'd say, well, I know a Taylor Swift cover band from Israel. Some would say it's anything based on music from the Old Testament, anything based on the Old Testament, and I'd say African American spirituals, and I get it's Jewish music is a Jewish performer, or it's anything in a minor key. But one of the most interesting answers I got was actually from George Wein, the late great founder of the Newport Jazz Festival, who passed away earlier this year. I asked him the question, and he said Cole Porter was Jewish music, and he specifically said that song, "My Heart Belongs to Daddy," was Jewish music. And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Cole Porter's maybe the only Jewish composer, the only composer in the group of great American songbook composers who wasn't Jewish." And George Wein said, "Yeah, but he understood that at the time he was writing music for Broadway, that 80% of the audience coming to Broadway shows were Jews who were into the Yiddish theater. So he had to write with a Jewish audience in mind. And to him, that made the music more Jewish than Harold Arlen, perhaps." I thought that was great. And so basically I thought about it and I got 300 different answers, and they were all right, but none of them were right. So to me, it kind of hit me that the Jewish part of the music, to me, is really the story about the music, not necessarily the music. As Suzanne mentioned, I've written a few liner notes to a few Wynton Marsalis albums, and I told him at the time that I was running the Atlanta Jewish Music Festival, and he said, "Jewish music, interesting. Not really a thing, but all over American music." Exactly. So to me, with the story being the Jewish part, I thought it would be great to play another song that has a good story that once you hear it, you'll never think of the song the same way again. It's a great song by George Gershwin, "Our Love Is Here to Stay." He actually wrote this song. It was the last song he wrote in 1937. And when he wrote the melody, but after he passed away, his brother Ira, who wrote a lot of lyrics to his songs, titled it "Our Love Is Here to Stay" with his brother George in mind. And I'll play that now. Thank you very much. That was Our Love Is Here to Stay by George and Ira Gershwin. And funny thing happened to me. One of my first, I grew up in Atlanta and I moved to New York after high school to go to NYU, and I lived there for about 10 years. One of my first gigs was at a little restaurant on the Upper East Side, and the piano was situated right next to this table, and I could, in whoever sat at that table, I could hear every word of their conversation. And one night I was playing that song, and there was an old couple sitting next to the table, and the wife said, "Gosh, I love this song." And the husband didn't know the song. He said, "I don't know the song." And she said, "You don't know Our Love Is Here to Stay?" And it escalated into a fight that was so intense that by the end of it, she said she couldn't believe she was married to someone who didn't know this song. And it was just hilarious because the name of the song is Our Love Is Here to Stay. And speaking of, it's really interesting to look at how these, first and second generation Jewish Americans impacted American music and how they all found their own voice within it and created so much. And I think George Gershwin is really interesting because one of the first jobs he tried to get was he wanted to work with Shalom Secunda, who was a Yiddish composer who wrote songs like By Mir Bist du Shane. And Shalom Secunda actually did not give him the job. He said that Gershwin wasn't Jewish enough. So Gershwin then went to Irving Berlin. He wanted to be his secretary. But Irving Berlin said that he didn't think that Gershwin would be happy writing just silly popular tunes, he said. So Gershwin was rejected for being not Jewish enough and basically not being American enough. And he had to find his own sound. And that's exactly what he did. And one of my favorite facts about his Rhapsody in Blue is that Rachmaninoff and Willie the Lion Smith were both in the audience giving a standing ovation the night of the premiere at Carnegie Hall. And, a lot of people would have told me that they thought Jewish music was anything in a minor key. But there's so much music that's in a minor key that you can't really say it's anything in a minor key. To me, it's Jewish music. But the interesting thing is I found a lot of people like my hero in this world, Ben Sidran, who talk about how it's not the thing that's the minor key that makes it Jewish. It's really the major minor shift. A song starts in a minor key, it ends in a major key. And I thought I'd demonstrate that with All the Things You Are, a wonderful song by Jerome Kern, who was who wrote this alongside Oscar Hammerstein. thank you very much. That was All the Things You Are by Jerome Kern and Oscar Hammerstein. And I guess the major minor shift part is this part that it starts here, but ends here. To me, I think that's a very Jewish concept that you'll find all over American music in songs like Summertime. And I'll move on now to Harold Arlen, the son of a cantor. And interesting, Harold Arlen wrote so much great music that is hard to imagine America without. And it's really interesting because he was a big fan of Louis Armstrong coming up, and he played some Louis Armstrong for his father, who was a cantor, and his father heard it and said, "He's singing some of my stuff." And little did either of them know at the time, but Louis Armstrong found a lot of influence in the Jewish culture that he kind of grew up with in New Orleans. He worked for a Jewish family called the Karnofsky family, growing up in New Orleans. And, he invented scat singing. It was in the middle of a recording session. He dropped his sheet music, but the tape was still running, so he had to think of something to do. So he started scatting, or doing what became known as scatting. And he didn't really talk about this, but he confessed it to his friend Cab Calloway years later, that in that moment, he thought back to the Jewish family, the Karnofskys, praying in their kitchen. And, they pray in Yiddish or in Hebrew, and I guess to him it was kind of random syllables, but he did say that they instilled singing in my heart. That's the quote. But he thought back to that in that moment and was inspired by that, and that's where the inspiration for his scat singing came from. He said that he didn't talk about it because he thought it would be perceived as making fun of Jewish people, which it wasn't. But I think it's a fascinating story and just a great example of music between cultures, the title of this program. But I'll continue with a Harold Arlen classic. This was I think named one of I don't know what the term is, but it was like rated the top song of the entire 20th century. This is Over the Rainbow. And if you can't tell, I'm very influenced by the great pianist Errol Garner, so there's always a little hint of him in my music. thank you so much. That was Over the Rainbow, a little nod to Louis Armstrong, Errol Garner, and of course, Harold Arlen. And I think one of the things that I think is most special about Louis Armstrong is that, before him, there was kind of a voice that everyone was trying to sound like. And Louis Armstrong made it okay to sound like you. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about American music is it's about finding your voice, not trying to sound like, you know, um, a certain voice. Find yourself. And so, with that in mind, I hope you've enjoyed the show so far because it could be about to take a downturn. I'm just kidding, but I'm gonna sing a song, and this is another Jerome Kern song. And I think this is really interesting that. He wrote this song. This was kind of a big motto for me for the last couple of years. This is "Look for the Silver Lining." You have to get a little sip of Gatorade real quick. All right. Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue. Remember, somewhere the sun is shining, and so the right thing to do is make it shine for you. A heart full of joy and gladness will always banish sadness and strife. So always look for the silver line and try to find the sunny side of life. Look for the silver lining whenever a cloud appears in the blue. Remember, somewhere the sun is shining, and so the right thing to do is make it shine for you. A heart full of joy and gladness will always banish sadness and strife. So always look for the silver lining and try to find the sunny side of life. Thank you so much. I think. Hope you enjoyed that. That was a look for the silver lining. It's interesting that, there's so many of these Jewish composers came from families of parents or grandparents that were cantors. And interestingly, Jerome Kern's grandpa was a cantor and someone who loved attending his services and fell in love with a lot of Jewish music through Jerome Kern's grandpa was Paul Robeson. And I know we're kind of running out of time a little bit, so I might skip one or two, but I wanted to do an Irving Berlin song. And interestingly, Jerome Kern, when talking about Irving Berlin, he said he said he doesn't attempt to stuff the, no, he said, it was at a dinner in London, and I was asked what, in my opinion, were the chief characteristics of the American nation. I replied that the average United States citizen was perfectly epitomized in Irving Berlin's music. He doesn't attempt to stuff the public's ear with pseudo-original ultramodernism, but he honestly absorbs the vibrations emanating from the people, manners, and life of his time, and in turn, gives these impressions back to the world. Simplified, clarified, glorified. In short, what I really want to say is that Irving Berlin has no place in American music. He is American music. So I'm gonna sing one more. I just started this one, so I hope you enjoy. It's a lovely day today. It's a lovely day today. So whatever you've got to do, you've got a lovely day to do it, and that's true. And I hope whatever you've got to do is something that can be done by two. For I really would like to stay. Well, it's a lovely day today. And whatever you've got to do, I'd be so happy to be doing it with you. But if you've got something that must be done, and it can only be done by one, there is nothing more to say, except it's a lovely day for saying it's a lovely day. Well, it's a lovely day today. So whatever you've got to do, you've got a lovely day to do it, and that's true. And I hope whatever you've got to do is something that can be done by two. For I'd really like to stay. Well, it's a lovely day today. And whatever you've got to do, I'd be so happy to be doing it with you. But if you've got something that must be done, and it can only be done by one, there is nothing more to say, except it's a lovely day for saying, except it's a lovely day for saying, except it's a lovely day for saying, it's a lovely day. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. That's all the singing I do, I promise. But another thing I wanted to get into a little bit was, I came into this Jewish professional job with Neranenah through my love of jazz music. And I really gravitated toward this music through a love of the blues and a love of bluegrass and a love of black music, truthfully. And that's a phenomena that I've discovered with a lot of Jewish jazz and rock musicians that I've spoken to, is that we all grew up fascinated with Black music. And in a way, we grew up uh, feeling that the musicians we idolized, we were somehow connected to, related to in a strange way. And I've been very lucky to connect very closely with some of my greatest heroes, and that includes Les McCann, the pianist, Ramsey Lewis, pianist Ahmad Jamal, and what is interesting is that they all grew up playing in a church, and I grew up somehow uh, absorbing that gospel sound, and it really resonates deeply with me, like it does with a lot of other Jewish jazz musicians who didn't grow up in a church. But Les McCann, he kind of challenged me. He said, "Man, you didn't grow up in church. That's cool. You're influenced by all this stuff, but you grew up in a synagogue. Why don't you play? I'm sorry. Why don't you play something you grew up with in synagogue and put your little spin on that?" So that's what I'm going to try to do now with Osei Shalom. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed my take on Osei Shalom. And if you did, it is available on that album Suzanne mentioned, The Upside and Down, live at Birdland. And I wanted to play two more songs before we take some questions. And I'm all about these stories, and I think what's really interesting is that we're sharing history and stories, but so much uh, of what these Jewish composers contributed to American music was so personal to them. So it's definitely a historical retrospective, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't put some of me in here too. So I want to share one story. Speaking of the great Les McCann. I met him at the Blue Note. I was his opening act, and I remember the day that I was going to meet him. I was opening for him, and I was doing my sound check, and he came in the club. He was in a wheelchair, and someone wheeled him up to the stage, and I was so nervous about to meet my hero, and I was expecting a greeting. I was so excited to meet him, and he didn't say hello. He just said, "Play me some blues, boy." And I got really nervous. I'm this Jewish millennial, and he's this black master of the blues. So I got nervous. I did my thing, but I tried my best, but I was freaking out. And he said, after a few minutes, he said, "Amen." So I knew I was doing something okay. And afterward, he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Joe Alterman." He said, "Alterman, you rabbi?" And I said, "No, but I was trying to think of what to say." And he said, "You a Hebrew?" I said, "Sure, you can call me a Hebrew." And he said, "From now on, you're my Hebrew." And it's the start of a beautiful friendship. It's been about 11 years now. We talk every day. And he's in a hospital, and he doesn't have a piano. He's bedridden. And when he gets an idea for a melody, he calls me. And this next song was something we wrote together. And he asked me to put a title to it. And I thought back to his voicemail machine before he went in the hospital. And it was, "Hi, this is Les. Give me time to get to the phone, but don't forget to love yourself." So this is "Don't Forget to Love Yourself." Hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much. That was my Les McCann's "Don't Forget to Love Yourself." And I'll do one more before we take some questions. And when we move beyond the 40s and the 50s and the 30s, we get to Carole King and the Brill Building era, Bob Dylan, and all these great songwriters. And I just wanted to close with another song that's provided me and a lot of people comfort during these times. This is Carole King's "You've Got a Friend." Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed the music, and I'll take some questions for a little bit. Oh, I think got a lot of questions. What is the song "My Heart Belongs to Daddy" about? Um, Good question. I know that Marilyn Monroe sang it, but I don't really know the meaning behind that one, honestly. Um, yes, and someone pointed out that Gershwin's "It Ain't Necessarily So" is the first bit of the melody is the same thing as the Haftorah blessing. So it's very interesting. What about klezmer music? Is that Jewish music? To me, this was a big thing for me when it occurred to me that klezmer music is a genre of music. So when I was running the Atlanta Jewish Music Festival, I realized that people, if they like klezmer music, they're going to type in when's the next klezmer concert coming to town. But I didn't find many people typing in when's the next Jewish music concert coming to town. So to me, klezmer is a genre of music, but Jewish music is not a genre of music. It's I use the term Jewish contributions to music, but when I say Jewish music, I really think of that as a cultural phenomena that envelops a lot of different genres of music. How can I purchase all the things you are? I got to record it first, but I think this is being recorded, so hopefully it'll be up on YouTube at some point. Do I believe that it's stereotypical or even racist to say that Jewish music is anything in a minor key? I'm very offended by that. I don't think I'm not offended by that. I just think it's an uninformed answer to the question. There's so many different kinds of music written in a minor key, and I just think it's a incorrect answer to the question. So I'm not offended by it. Well, thank you. My background, I grew up in Atlanta, asked for piano lessons when I was 3 years old, 4 years old. Took a few, immediately hated it, but my parents wouldn't let me quit. So from 3 or 4 to about 12, I was taking the piano, not enjoying it, always getting in trouble for changing notes. I never knew at that time that there was a question or a genre of music where you might be encouraged to do that. I was taking classical music, classical lessons, and I discovered bluegrass music around the age of 12, and all I wanted to do was learn a song by Doc Watson called Freight Train Boogie. And it had a boogie woogie bass line. So I got some guitar lessons, which my dad said I could do if I didn't quit my piano lessons. And all I wanted to do was learn this song. But the guitar teacher impressed on me that boogie woogie music was written for the piano, not for the guitar. And I could already play the piano. So that inspired me to get back onto the piano, as did a couple Oscar Peterson and Errol Garner records. Um, and it all kind of went from there. Oh, yes, and you're right, Jill. Rhapsody in Blue did premiere at Aeolian Hall. Thank you for clarifying that. Um, the album name, it's called The Upside of Down, and it was recorded live at Birdland. Glad you enjoyed Osei Shalom. Thank you. Um, Interesting. Someone asked, where does Leonard Cohen fit into your definition of Jewish music? Um, it's 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 harder for me to talk about Leonard Cohen, but it's easier for me to talk about Bob Dylan. And I think, to me, we brought in Alan Light, he's a writer for Rolling Stone, to our festival a few years ago, and I said, you know, besides Bob Dylan being born Jewish, is there anything Jewish about his music? And he said, yeah, he answers every question with a question. But he also said that Bob Dylan was friends with a lot of musicians like Sam Cooke and Curtis Mayfield, and he really impressed on these musicians to own their publishing. And there were a lot of musicians who, because they took Bob Dylan's advice and owned their publishing, were able to have an easier retirement end of life. He thought that was a very Jewish concept in a way. So Leonard Cohen, I think there are definitely Jewish things about his music, and he's obviously Jewish. That's the beauty of the question: what is Jewish music? If you think it's Jewish music because he's Jewish, then it is. But if you don't, then it's not. I do not have a whole album of Jewish songs, but I'm working on it. Um, and Judith, thank you. It's not a question, it's a compliment. I'm definitely open to those, as she said. The name of that composer was Les McCann. He had a big hit in the late 60s called Compared to What? I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Thank you for the kind words. Um, what was my Jewish upbringing like in Atlanta? I went to a Jewish day school, the Epstein School. It was a Solomon Schechter school. I went to synagogue occasionally. I had a bar mitzvah, and I love the Jewish community down here. Has klezmer music influenced me? It has in some ways. I To me, klezmer music is like Jewish Dixieland music, and it's music that I hear it sometimes in jazz and it really resonates with me. I remember I was very close with the writer Nat Hentoff, and he told me that he got into jazz because he was walking down the street one day and he heard an Artie Shaw record that just really hit him in his heart. And he found out years later that it was a piece Artie Shaw based off of Nigun. And he said he felt like when he heard that, he was welcomed into the jazz family. And I can totally relate to that. Why do I think so many Jews were in the music business in the 20s and 30s? It was, it's interesting. I asked George Wein about this, and he said, it was just kind of something that it was like, a lot of Irish people came over to America and got into being, into the police, and things like that. And it was just, it wasn't really even a business at the time. It was just I think it was just, a way something they gravitated towards. I know that, I think it was in Russia that if you were in, that if you were in music school, you didn't have to join the army, something there, but there was just something about all this that obviously either resonated with Jewish people or just they found an economic opportunity here. Do you have any thoughts on the other Jews who compose music for theater? I love that stuff. Jews who compose music for theater. I just don't play a lot of that, so I don't talk about it as much. But it's definitely a beautiful part of the Jewish contribution to American music. Oh yeah, could you comment on Cole Porter allegedly saying that he had no real success until he made his songs sound more Jewish? Yeah, I think it's interesting. He told, I think it was Sammy Kahn, who grew up on the Lower East Side, that he would have really been a genius if he had been born on the Lower East Side. He was jealous of his upbringing in the Lower East Side. But I think it goes back to what George Wein told me, that he knew that much of the audience coming to Broadway shows at that period were Jewish people, and he had to write with those people in mind. And to him, that made the music Jewish music. And yes, thank you, Judith. My Heart Belongs to Daddy is referring to a sugar daddy. Do I see an impact on Jewish music from the Holocaust? Yeah, there's some pretty incredible music that came out of some of the camps. Erwin Schulhoff is an incredible pianist. Let's see. I'll take one more question. I'll just take two quick ones. Did Louis Armstrong live with this Jewish family or work for them? I think he lived with them for a period, but he was kind of their Shabbos goy. He did their stuff on Shabbat when they couldn't turn the lights on. He would do stuff like that, and I think he lived with them, but I'm not positive. You might want to look that one up. But when George Gershwin wrote "Our Love Is Here to Stay," did he know he was dying? So he wrote I'm not sure if he knew that he was dying, but he only wrote the music, and then when he died, his brother Ira put the title to it. And okay, last one. Joyce, yes. Do you bring music to temples once opened after COVID? Yes, I'm definitely open. I'd love to. But thanks so much. I just, I know we're running out of time, but if anyone wants to get in touch, my website is joealtermanmusic.com. You can contact me there. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff, just at Joe Alterman. And I hope you'll tune into some of our Neranenah stuff too, neranenaharts.org. And I just want to thank you so much. It's been such a treat to play and chat with y'all. And I hope we can do it again. But thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for sharing with our audience today. It was absolutely fabulous. And I want to thank the audience for joining us today as well. Please remember to go to momentmag.com where you can register for next week's Zoominar with Congressman Jamie Raskin. Again, thank you, Joe, and we'll see everybody next time. Thanks.